This week, we leave the U.S. for the Bahamas on our way to the Eastern Caribbean. It's our first longer passage with just the three of us, and it was generally uneventful except for the storms. For some reason, they always come up in the middle of the night.
'Cause even in the madness, there is peace, drowning out the voices all around me. Through all of this chaos, you are writing a symphony, oh.
After riding out the hurricane that passed a couple hundred miles to the south of us, it was time to get going. The weather opened up for us to get across the Gulf Stream, so we headed out. Okay, we have just left Brunswick. We got just the Maine and the Genoa up, and we're making good time. And I think we've got like a foot of seas. It's a perfect day for sailing. So we're gonna shoot out this way, cross the Gulf Stream in the next 24 hours, and then head south, and we'll hit Abacos. Yeah, awesome weather. Hopefully it'll hold for a while. I know it's not going to be like this the whole way, but you can hope. When I'm on shift, this is kind of what everybody else does.
Wow, so that's it. It's 4 o'clock.
Pretty lame.
So sad.
So, first night shift on our way to Abacos from Brunswick. And we're in the middle of the Gulf Stream right now. The waves are just everywhere. They're coming from all directions. We've got a 4-knot current on our beam. We had all the sails up, and then we had the main reefed, and that was fine. We were going really fast, but when you go fast and confused or big waves, it makes it even more uncomfortable. So we dropped the main and we just have the Genoa out, slowed down a bit, and it made it a little bit more comfortable. I'm struggling with the shift schedule. We decided to try 4-hour shifts, but there was a bunch of stuff that I needed to do before I got on my shift at midnight, just with the wind and sail changes. And then there was also the TCU football game that kind of got in the way as well. So I'm going to be a veg tomorrow after this, and we're just going to have to readjust and figure stuff out. The seas are all torn up from the hurricane and the big winds that was generating, and it just hasn't settled yet, so it makes for an uncomfortable ride. This is just part of it. I think we're just not used to it because we've only been out sailing for a couple of weeks now, and by the end of the season this will seem pretty tame. So that's my first night shift. The wind turned, and it was a perfect time to put the downwind sail out, but I routed the furling line incorrectly, so I had to go sort all of that out. We got it fixed and got the code 0 deployed for a nice pull downwind towards our turn to the Bahamas. At this point, we were 150 miles into the 450-mile trip. So day 2 is coming to a close. The cold front just rolled through. You can kind of see some little storm clouds. It's not a very wet front. There's no big storms, just enough to get the boat wet. After getting the code 0 fixed and run right, we just put it up after the front rolled through, and we're just going to kind of follow the wind, and it's going to curve us around and point us towards Marsh Harbor. At least that's the hope.
hopefully it'll stay strong, and we'll just be able to sail the rest of the way in. We've had to motor quite a bit because we've had weird wind angles and stuff like that. So anyway, uneventful day, and one more day and we'll be there and see the beautiful blue waters of the Bahamas.
So night shift number 2, and there are storms that have popped up along the front. These are different. They're thunderstorms. I can see lots of lightning in them. On our radar, it shows up really nice. And there's no way to really acquire a storm on here to track which direction it's going. And so we'll place waypoints on the edges, and as you can see on this one, the edges are, the storm isn't really moving. It's moving south very slowly, and it's expanding a little bit. I don't want to go through that, and we have enough wind to go ahead and try to steer around it. Because it's not moving, it's pretty easy to do. I'd rather do that than risk a lightning strike in the middle of the night 100 miles offshore. So we're going to go around it, and hopefully we'll be able to vector back towards Abacos as soon as we get past it. All right, storm update number 2. It's a weird storm. It's not moving a lot, so it's really hard to tell which direction to go. And so I went one direction and it was the wrong direction. So now I've turned around, kind of back where I started 2 hours ago. But I think we're in the right direction now. I put markers on the edge of the storm that I'd like to aim for. I don't like storms in general, but if you're 150 miles offshore and you get struck by lightning, man, that would be pretty catastrophic. Ideally, we would be okay in a situation like that, but it's best to just avoid danger. This is one of the biggest dangers out here. A storm out in the middle of the open ocean. It's fine if we're delayed a half a day to be safe. So the storm was not something we could get around. There was one end with lightning and one end without lightning, so we decided to go in the end with lightning and just pass through it. We've been mucking around since almost 3 hours trying to figure out where to go and what to do. And we made a choice and we went into the storm. It looks like we've got, all told, it'll have taken like an hour to get through it, and then it looks nice and clear on the other side. I need to learn more about storms. Actually, it doesn't matter. It's still raining, but yeah, we're through the worst of it.
That was crazy.
After a very long night of dodging storms and going through some storms, the weather's cleared up. The winds are a lot stronger than predicted, and we've got both sails up, turned off the motors, and we're flying. We're doing 8-9 knots, and ideally this will hold until we get to our final destination. In the next I think we'll get there. We've got about 100 miles, so 2/3 of a day we'll get there, maybe faster, maybe slower. Anyway, good way to finish off the trip. All in all, I think it's going to end up taking us less than 3 days to get from Brunswick to Marsh Harbor. We'll get to Marsh Harbor and take a day to clean the boat and get some sleep, and then see what our next plans are. Ideally, we'll get to Turks and Caicos, but we might end up having to hop down the islands based on weather.
So until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.